Hey everybody, Stephen Palmieri here, and want to come live and talk a little bit about one way where you can raise your credit score fairly quickly and fairly easily. And it is what is called adding yourself as an authorized user to somebody's credit account. So let's talk about how this works. So your credit score is based on is a reflection of the risk that you pose for default. If you can get good trade line history added onto your credit quickly, easily, legitimately, then you're able to improve that credit profile. So, what is an authorized user account? Well, let's first talk about how it is that you can get what it is. So, there is this law called the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act essentially it prohibits discrimination on really any part of a credit transaction. So, if you have a law that prohibits discrimination on a credit transaction, and if you have, as a credit card company, a type of user that you do not underwrite, which is what an authorized user is, then you cannot discriminate who you can put as an authorized user. So let's try that a different way. So when I say the credit card companies have a type of user that they do not underwrite, the nature of an authorized user is that they do not bear any of the liability, responsibility, or risk of the credit card. So you could think of it like, maybe you're a parent, you want to put your child on your credit card. They're not going to be a cosigner. You can call up your credit card company, any one of them, and they have a type of user called an authorized user. And you can set limited risk, or excuse me, limited limits, restricted limits on what the authorized user can use. So let's say you want to give your child a card, but they can maybe only spend, $300 per billing cycle or something like that, right? You may have a $50,000 credit card. You can do all of those types of variations. All the credit card companies have an authorized user type category. So think of it, right? If you've got a credit card, or maybe even you and your spouse, you two are the ones who were underwritten. You're the signer and the co-signer. You all are the ones who are legally liable for this. Um, if you give your child a credit card under this authorized user concept, the idea makes sense, right? The credit cards are putting this idea out there, this type of user, this concept, so that you can have somebody else use your card, but you're still the one responsible for it. Okay. So when I say that there is no underwriting, well, there's no underwriting. There is no underwriting, right? You basically fill out, the information, the name, the address, the social security number, the date of birth of the authorized user. You give it to the credit card company. And again, because they have a type of user known as an authorized user, by law, they cannot discriminate on any part from start to finish to the middle of a credit transaction. That's the law. Been a law for a long time. So credit card companies cannot say, well, we have this authorized user, type user, which bears no liability whatsoever, which means we can't underwrite it. Because how are we going to underwrite something that we cannot hold accountable? So we have this authorized user type user that bears no liability, therefore cannot be underwritten, but we're only going to let you put your children or your grandmother on there. You see, they cannot do that by law. So by offering an authorized user type user, anybody, and I mean anybody, can be placed on as an authorized user, and it is entirely legal. And in fact, it would be illegal for people to even think that it's illegal when you understand how the law is written. And so, as an authorized user, what they do is they put you on the card. That's the general concept of it. And what happens for credit reporting purposes is the next reporting cycle, that entire history of that account will get reported on the credit report of that new authorized user. So if you give it to your son or your daughter, or, you know, your elderly parent or whatever. Uh, the man on the moon. If you put somebody on your card as an authorized user, let's say you've got a $30,000 credit limit that you've had this card for, say, 20 years. It's a beautiful card, right? 20 years, $30,000 limit. Maybe you've got $1,000 on it. So it's got very little balance. It's got lots of history. This entire account will end up being inserted on the credit report of that authorized user the next reporting cycle. So the way that this can work as an advantage to you if you're trying to get some quick increase on your credit score is find somebody. First, try to see if you can find somebody who you know that can put you on the card. If not, there's trade line basic, for lack of a better phrase, trade line brokers that are out there. They're essentially companies who know lots of folks with credit cards, and they kind of act as the middleman. They kind of like, it's the guy down the street that opens up his coat. He's like, what do you want on here? You want the watches? You want the Rolodex? They have all these different credit cards, and you can basically shop and say, I want it, this Chase $30,000 limit, $1,000 balance, 20 years old, and they're going to put a price on it. And what they're selling you is basically, the matchmaking and the ability for you to get added as an authorized user for the purpose of the trade line reporting. Okay. Now, if you're doing it in the capacity of a credit repair company, credit repair is regulated by a law called the Credit Repair Organizations Act. You do want to make sure you're not violating CROA, charging in advance, things of that nature. But apart from that, right, the concept of, hey, you're going to get put on this card as an authorized user. That is something that is absolutely available to you. Now, here's really where we want to take this in for a landing, is because the mortgage scores that are used are across the nation are the older versions of the FICO score. Your newer versions of the FICO score actually exclude authorized users from scoring. Big bad FICO trying to go ahead and game the system of the game that they've created. But none of the mortgage companies have moved to the newer scoring model. That's the good news. So really, it doesn't matter what mortgage company across the United States you're using. All of the older FICO scoring models still include authorized user accounts in the scoring model. So what this means to you, let's say you need 5, 10, 20 points, whatever the case is. Now, it's going to vary, right? Because depending upon the current condition of your credit, there's nobody that can sit here. I can't sit here and tell you what you're going to get, how many points you're going to get from it. But one thing, if you are working with a qualified mortgage professional, they should have a tool called a score simulator. And what they can do when they pull your credit, they can run your credit through this score simulator, and basically they can say, what if Susie Q over here were to have a 20-year-old $30,000 credit limit with a current $1,000 balance, Chase account inserted into his credit report? And the score simulator, because they're using it directly with the credit reports that they get and directly with the FICO, and these simulators are almost spot on, actually. They can tell you based on your credit profile where you currently are in reality. Hey, if you were to do this, you would get this many points. It's actually a thing. They can do that for you, right? And then they can also say, if these 5 items were deleted, these collections or whatever, and this were added, you would get this many points. So there's a lot of tools that are out there. If you know how the tools, if you know how the game is played, how the system is structured, that you can use to figure out a game plan, a pathway forward to helping you to improve your credit, raise your credit score. So that being said, if you need a few points for a mortgage and you've gone through the credit repair process, you still need a few more points. Maybe you don't need to go through the credit repair process because all you need is a few points. An authorized user account being added on to somebody's authorized user account is an absolutely 100% legitimate way under the law, under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. I've heard people say things like, oh, well, what you're doing is you're defrauding the potential future lender because you're getting this account, with the intention of adjusting your credit score. Well, so there's actually been government publications on this, how authorized using piggybacking is what it's called, is a legitimate thing. There was a credit conference called CreditCon several years ago. A gentleman from the Federal Trade Commission spoke there, said he has no issues with it. So you can't really sit here and listen to folks who may say something like, oh, well, you can't game the system, because guess what? The system is gaming you, right? You do not have the choice of deciding what gets inserted into your personal credit report, right? It's kind of like you're just stuck there, and whatever the system wants to put in, the system is going to put in. So if you happen to know the way that the system is created that you can voluntarily control, absolutely it's within your legal authority and right to do that. So because they cannot not give it to you, because then they would be discriminating by not giving you an authorized user which has no underwriting uh, capacity whatsoever. So that being said, this was on my mind. I wanted to share it with all of you guys. Hopefully this helps you. And for those of you guys who know me, thank you for following me. For those of you guys who are new to me, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Feel free to like, share, comment below what questions you have. I would love to get back with you. If you want to talk to me about how I can help you raise your credit score, or also lower your taxes, fix your accounting processes, feel free to shoot me an email, Stephen@StephenPalmieri.com. Remember one thing, fix your finances and improve your life, and I will see all of you on the next video. You all take care.